Well, hello, sweet friends. I know it's been a while since we've done an interview, but God's timing is perfect. Welcome to Opting Out the Extraordinary Zone. And I am so excited to be here for 2020 and to see what God is doing. I'm going to say amazing. I know that's going to probably sound crazy with everything that's going on, but God is amazing. And just to say that I'm here in the mountains, and really probably shouldn't be, but God has you all over the place. I think the last extraordinary zone I did was in Texas. I'm not even in Texas. So, so in the mountains, specifically here to speak with Joe, who God brought us to last week kind of unexpectedly. And we just, you recognize another family member from the body.
Yes.
And just kind of, felt the need to reach out. And so here we are to hear his story of just amazing excellence, to encourage those of you who are watching or listening to this. So we're going to just jump right in and learn more about this amazing man's story of hope and triumph and glory and all that, just, based on his faith and trust. So we will jump right in, and I would love for you to start with your first memory.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say, though, that I feel like this is a total God thing. Again, I'm glad that we got to do this, and hopefully something that, I don't say hopefully, I know for a fact something that's going to be said today, whether it be me or Kay, I'm going to call you Kay, if you don't mind, is will impact lives. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I'm glad to be a part of it, as I know God's moving. And again, I'm just thankful to be here tonight. So with that being said, my first memory was I know was God revealing a paradise to me, revealing heaven to me. I remember the feeling and everything that came with it. It was of complete peace. It was of serenity, that goes beyond all expectation. And I was at a very young age, so I knew that. But I knew, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I knew it was heaven. That's what he was showing to me. He also, during this vision or dream, if you will, I heard a plane fly over, as I was, telling you earlier, and it was one of the planes with the propellers, and you probably hear them every other day flying around. But to this day, because of that, I feel like he gave me a gift to where no matter what kind of situation I'm in, no matter what kind of pain or hurt or confusion, whatever it might be, I might be experiencing. When I hear this plane flying over, he brings me back to that place. He brings me back to it's a gift. I call it a gift to this day because I'm very thankful for that, that he reminds me. He can remind me openly like that. Followed by the reoccurring nightmares of Satan. It was every time I fell asleep. I was literally terrified to go to sleep because it was the exact opposite feeling. I would see Satan coming, and again, mind you, I was at an age where I didn't have the influences of man, if you will. I was very young. This is my first memory, and so I hadn't been going to church, or I hadn't, but I knew it was Satan. Something in me told me this is Satan.
It was from a place of innocence, and
exactly.
That's how you were able to understand what's going on.
And so it was exact opposite of that gift that God gave me, and that vision that God gave me of heaven. It was terror. It was anxiety. It was fear, and all the things that the enemy wants to try to instill in our lives. Every time I fell asleep. And I look back now and I'm like, that's what he was trying to put into my life, right? That's what he was trying to instill in me. So that happened for quite some time. Probably the next memory that I remember would be my father and my mother telling me that my father was shot and murdered outside of a bar. So here we go. This is kind of like the startup for me. And then my mother, God bless her, I love her very much. She also was having her own struggles. She was having her, we all have our own things to deal with, and I see that now. Of course, back then, she was into drugs. She was into the party scene. So as far as my guidelines and my discipline went, it really wasn't there, So I can remember at a very young age, again, like 5 and 6 years old, where I was able to run around the streets and do, what seemed like to me, do whatever I wanted to do, come home whenever I wanted to come home. And so I did that. And because of that situation, I believe, I was a victim of a child predator, and this happened for this happened for a while as well. And I'm really young, and I don't know that this is wrong. It wasn't until we moved away from that area that, and I'd went to school and I'd learned a little something about those things, and it's not okay that I, came out. And I told my mom about it. He, the same guy had called and wanted me to come over, and I knew the difference then. And I was like, Mom, I actually wrote it on the back of a playing card. Hey, he's doing things, that he shouldn't be doing. And so the police get called and so on and so forth. And, long story short, I ended up going to court really young, happened to tell the story to a bunch of people I don't even know, and to me it was horribly embarrassing, and but I still had to tell the story, and again, long story short, the case ends up getting thrown out, and it was all a judicial thing. My lawyer did something wrong, had some dates wrong or something like that, so the case gets thrown out. And so at a very young age, I remember thinking, my respect, if you will, towards authority or any of that, for that matter, was gone. I was like, I can't trust in anybody, and nobody can help me. So I'm certainly not going to fall into the guidelines, So, that was a pretty rough start, a pretty rough start.
And how old were you by this point?
I would say that I was in the vicinity of 7, 8-ish, whenever all this was going on. And Mom, again, I love you. She, she had went to rehab herself. So she was starting to get out of this, but we still seen some things and went through some things that I have a younger brother and sister that kids shouldn't see or be around, and so that had impacted me in my life, and it was it was detrimental. But the one grace about the whole thing was that my grandparents would pick us up every Sunday and take us to church. And so I was still getting to, when I think about it now, I was like, I still at least got to go there and, and hear about Christ. I was hearing about Christ. I was, and we'd done that for years. I remember going, like I was telling you, I remember going to Bible camps and stuff like that. And this is probably at, 8, 9 years old, I think, at that time, where I had my first experience with Christ. And that was me at a church Bible camp in New York. And I remember praying before Christ and walking out of there. And I was really young, but it was still very vivid. And it was like, wow, it just feels so amazing. What's this feeling? Oh, Lord, thank you. And you are real. Okay. So how about that one? Anyway, we ended up moving to Missouri, and so we come out here, and to me, it was a fresh start. I still was, I was still, I was glad to get away. Just glad to get away from all those things that had happened. And believe me, I was going down the wrong road. I was already dabbling in drugs a little bit back then. Okay, so and I wasn't even, by that point, I think I was, 11, something like that. And I was already being introduced to drugs. So it only had happened a little bit. And looking back now, God was probably like, no, I'm moving, uprooting you. We're going to take you to Missouri.
Right.
Which is, again, it's just amazing how he lines it all up to get me that far away.
He kept protecting you
in
different areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking back now, I'm able to see through all these situations where what the enemy meant for bad, He's using for good, and He's using me to share with others. And I have a heart for it now, without a shadow of a doubt, because I know that the gift that He given me is real, and so we want that for everybody. So I'm going to kind of skip through, of course, graduation night from high school. I get introduced to the drug scene pretty much again, you know, and so the marijuana, the drinking and whatnot, and I got hooked almost instantly that night. It turned into an everyday thing for me, and it was a party scene, and I've always kind of had that personality where, like, if I'm having fun, I want everybody else to have fun, and I still, you know, care about people, and I want anybody feeling left out. I didn't even know, you know, like, I feel like He had that in me. He's already kind of wired that in me. And so I was doing that, and then because of my father passing away, I get an inheritance check, and it was a lot of money, you know. I didn't know what to do with it. So what do you think? You know, I had this money given to me, and so again, the party continued, and everybody around me that I knew was having a good time too, you know. And I look back now, and of course I thought they were my friends, you know, quote unquote friends. You know, obviously it's not the case usually, because whenever you end up going to jail, which I did, end up going to jail, how many of those people showed up or called or wrote letters while I was sitting in jail? You all can probably guess. It was zero. You know, none of them. So I caught my first felony. Well, I actually was charged with my first felony. I say charged. And I was, since it was my first felony, they gave me 3 years probation. I decided it'd probably be best for me to leave the area and go back to Delaware because I have it all figured out, you know. So we go back to Delaware. Of course, it doesn't matter where you go. If you're in the drug scene and alcohol scene, you can find it anywhere you go. You know, it's the nature of the beast. You will go find it no matter where you're at. So back in Delaware, part of my, for probation is I can't violate my probation, and my charges will be dropped, but it doesn't stop me. I continue to do the partying. And then I get introduced to crack cocaine, and it wasn't necessarily by choice. You know, again, it was pretty much slipped on something else that I was using, and but I was instantly hooked. It's highly addictive, and it's a terrible drug, and it's the beast that comes with that is will rob you of everything very quickly, and he did me. It was probably only about a 6 month. I say a 6 month period but when it comes down to it, when you're out there using, everything's pretty cloudy anyway. So I'm ballparking, but I do know it was a pretty rapid transition, from just my regular party scene to now, wait a minute, even though I'm on probation and I can violate it, I'm still going to choose to use these drugs, Or I'm going to get my paycheck on Friday, and I'm supposed to be taking drug tests, and I don't know when they're going to happen, but I'm going to still use drugs on Friday. I'm going to take my whole check. I'm going to go use it all that night, and then I have no money for the rest of the week. That's the other, part of the sickness of it. But I needed to get, and that, again, is the demonic part of the beast that comes along with the drug use and everything. So it really took me to a place that was very, very dark. Yeah, it was an extremely dark place. And then I would say probably the following. I did pull myself out of that. I did, start to, because of situations where I felt like I was ODing, like I was going to die, and I couldn't tell anybody. I could not, because I was alone. I didn't want anybody to know that I was out doing these hard drugs. Part of me still knew the difference. It's an
isolating thing.
Very isolating. And
it
part
is.
of me,
It's kind of set up, I think, as a part of the attack on that.
I agree.
It isolates you so that you don't reach out for help.
Yeah, so he can kill you.
Yep.
He wants
That's
to
the
take
plan.
you out of the game because
then
God
you can't be a
has a
threat.
purpose for each and every one of us.
That's
and if he
right.
can take you out of the game, you can't.
Yeah, he doesn't
win
risk you
battle.
being a threat
He doesn't
later.
want us to be a threat, right? But in that situation, when I felt completely alone, something tugged at my heart and said, call on me. I'll help you.
And you said you were in the front yard, right?
I was in the front yard of my grandparents' house. My heart was pounding. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is it.
Right.
I'm going to die.
You knew you had done way too much.
I had done way too much. Mm-hmm. But I dropped to my knees in that front yard, and I still can remember it to this day. And this was 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. I dropped to my knees, and it was calm outside. And I put my hands up in the air, and I said, Lord, help me. I can't turn anywhere else, but help me. I'm going to die if you don't. And I could hear him coming through in the wind. I could hear it, like looking back now, but I could hear him coming through the wind. And as soon as this wind hit me, it was like all of it was gone. I was sober. The fear was gone. And I was at peace again. It was just a little taste of that first memory that he gave me, or that first vision.
That was a miracle for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
A miracle. That's amazing.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, through that whole time, I saw into the demonic realm. I was seeing things, like when I was up for a week at a time, because this
is what your sleep.
Yeah, you don't sleep when you're out, So I would be up for a week at a time, and yes, I was seeing into the demonic realm, and I was seeing things, and I was seeing creatures and shadows, and I knew what they were again. I'm like, okay, whoa. He revealed that to me, like, hey, this is there is the other side, the other.
There are things going on that you
don't see. But I'm working all around you at all times, even though you don't see it. Not everything has to be seen. And so, because of stuff like that, I came back to Missouri, thought I could do it on my own. I ended up getting through the drug court. I ended up getting that felony taken off of my, so at some point but I came back here, got introduced to meth and drinking and everything. Thought I could do it. I was good for about a week, right? But then again, same mentality. I went back to the finding the people who had the stuff, old connections, using so on and so forth. Just the same cycle, right? The enemy wants to keep us in.
You ever heard that scripture? And this just kind of reminds me of this, where it says, what is it? How if the house is found empty and clean up and swept, right? And so let's say, you get delivered, and let's say you had a bunch of like thugs in your house, which was creating all of that problem. And then you called on Jesus and he cleaned the house
out the house.
And it says, and that's great, right? Takes the stronger man comes and takes out the strong man, right? And so, but if those things come back and finds the house swept in order and empty, then it'll go and bring even more.
Yeah, he's got
and
7
take up
brothers,
residence.
6 brothers, something like that.
7.
Come on, let's go
and
back.
And you'll be in worse state. So until you, and the sign is until you have, have Christ or the Holy Spirit in you taking up residence. Then they can always come back and bring even more to make it harder for them to be kicked out for the next time.
Absolutely. So to your point there, it's one thing to try to start over and get your life all together and get cleaned up. But yes, if you leave that house empty, then he's going to come back, and he's going to come back stronger than ever. Or the addiction, or the attack, or the depression, the anxiety, every single bit of it, right? The fear, you leave it empty. It's not until we, get filled with the Holy Spirit and have the relationship with Christ that you actually start to have victory.
That's right. Well, I can't come in there. That's right. The house has a resident now that is way stronger.
The guy comes back with his brothers, and then they open the door and like, wait a minute, who's...
Yeah, sorry, you can't come in here.
You have no place over him anymore because he's my child now.
That's right.
This is his house.
And they have to bow at the name of Jesus.
Yes.
That's right.
This is my house. Get on down the street. Okay.
Goosebumps. That was good.
I know a ghost.
Right.
That's why I wear this hat now. But this isn't necessarily I can't think of the word now, but David Crowder. This is a David Crowder hat. But that's where the power's at. Is
the Holy Ghost.
Knowing the Holy Ghost and having the relationship there and receiving the Holy Ghost into your life and but I did go back to that. I went back, and of course I left my house empty, and I thought I could do it on my own. And then within a couple years, I was, I was staying at a house where there was no plumbing, no water.
Mm-hmm.
Half of it was powered.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I stayed there was because it was the party house.
Mm-hmm.
And I was staying with a friend there. It was the party house. Everybody came there on the weekends or sometimes during the week, and they would bring the drugs or they would bring the alcohol. And I didn't have anything else going for me, but I did have, I knew that at some point in time to feed what I needed, because I was at a point in my life where my self-worth was gone. I thought this was all life was ever going to be. Yeah. I believed that lie. But again, I was hardcore self-medicating, but it also had gotten to the point to where even though I was using and all that, it still didn't take care of it. I had gone down so far that even the using whatnot, how they say, will bring you back to your normal level.
That's a lie.
It wasn't even bringing me back to my normal level anymore.
It just keeps declining.
It was declining. And I was coming
So let's do more to see if it gets better.
Yeah, I'm going to do more. Okay. But at this point, and this is probably about 12 years ago, so that friend I was telling you about that I'm staying with, friend, quote unquote, that I'm staying with, his parents lived next door, his mother. We would go over to their house to take showers because we didn't have plumbing, right? Or we'd go over to his house to eat because we didn't have food over there. But I'd walk in the house and she'd go, "Hey, you want to go to church with me?" And I'm like, "Nah, I don't want to go to church." And this happened for months. It did. It happened for months. "Do you want to go to church with me?" "Nah, I don't want to go to church." And I guess one night she said, "Do you want to fast?" I said, "Sure, it's different. Why not? Let's do it." So I fasted for 3 days, and it was something happened. Something started to happen. It was like a breaking started. It was like looking back, it was I totally feel like that was a turnaround.
Well, you felt a shackle or something release you.
Yeah, something released. Like I started seeing things a little bit differently in my life. I started feeling things a little bit differently in my life.
In that moment, those moments. So 3 days, what do you think that, what was it that drew you to saying yes to that?
You know what? I feel like I had gotten to a point in my life to where it was I felt so alone, so depressed. So, oh, by the way, the doctors had said that you have depression and anxiety, right? So, they told me that at a young age too. I think I was in my early 20s. So I was already, I was in that life.
Right.
I was, self-medicating. But, you know what? Honestly, it was very out of my character. But it was that tugging again. It was something, I feel like,
you think God just intervened?
Took over. I think God intervened in my life.
He'll do that.
Yeah, and he's like,
yeah, you want to try
do
it. You want to do this.
You might like it, or it was something like, well, hey, this is, I'm radical anyway, right? Why not try it?
And that's unique. That's very different than come to church with me. You're used to hearing that, but fast with me? Let's see if I can do that.
So I was saying no to going to church, but let's fast for 3 days. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
You're not committing to anything. You're not having to go
nothing,
in there.
But I can, I won't eat for 3 days.
Okay.
Let's do it. But I'm glad that I did, because the next time that I came over, or shortly thereafter, she says, "Do you want to go to church with me?" And I said, "You know what? Okay."
So what changed in you between when she asked and you're like, "No," and they're like, what felt different?
I think it was just the smallest, it was. It was just that smallest inclination that I felt something from it. I felt this a tugging, okay? Yeah. I was like, wait a minute. What? I literally started to see things differently, and I think people can say, well, yeah, because you were hungry or whatever the case may be. But this wasn't as much as a physical thing as it was looking back now, a spiritual thing.
Yes, fasting's amazing. I'm actually glad that this is, because you don't hear very many testimonies that involve fasting as being a turning point.
Yeah.
And I think I know that a lot of that has gotten lost in how many various ways people can grow in all the ways, not just physically, spiritually. I mean, all of the ways. Fasting is actually inherently built in as a tool of growing closer to God and truth and things. And so how neat that we're getting to hear a very real way that this was used in your life to start taking the hold of a lot of that addiction, a lot of the, because addiction is kind of part of the symptoms of some of the larger problems too.
Sure,
the
absolutely.
depression, the anxiety, all of those negative things that were just placed upon your life and in your life, that just weighed you, that just weighed you down.
Yes.
And it was way powerful. And I think that's the problem that people don't realize when wherever people are at in their growth, that feeling happens to everyone. Feeling that weight, and it's just about having the perspective of understanding. One, we will never on our own be able to be more powerful than that weight. But I think the deception is thinking you can do it on your own, and that is not the truth.
It's not the truth. I've tried. Personal experience here. Tried it for many years to do it on my own. Tried many different programs. Tried many different... but yeah, it wasn't until I started to have that spiritual connection and okay. So I went to church with her. It wasn't until this particular moment that I started to, okay, wait a minute, there's something to this, But I went to this church and I sat in the back row and I was like, I'm certainly not going to, this is uncomfortable still. It was uncomfortable, because I'm so used to 10 years of this lifestyle.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, I'm over here trying something different.
Right.
Okay. So I was at this church, and of course, I was sitting back here, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm here. And honestly, I was like, so I'm just going to sit through this, and then I'm going to go home, But the pastor's message was spot on. And honestly, I couldn't tell you today what was said, but I know the impact that it had. Because by the end of the meeting, I was really feeling this calling. I was really feeling this tugging on my heart. And I still didn't have the courage. I still didn't have, to stand up whenever he made an altar call at the end of the service, because I didn't want to get up in front of everybody.
And for those of you who aren't aware, an altar call is usually at the end of some kind of a service when they invite people who are feeling like they would like prayer, or if they want to know more about peace in Jesus, they have an opportunity to come down for prayer at the end of a service, a church service, or even revival service, or any kind of meeting where, it could be anywhere really, where they're talking about Jesus.
Or an invitation as
An
well
invitation,
to be
that's another way it's
saved.
called. Yes, that's
or the
right.
invitation to be saved.
That's right.
But my mindset still at this point in my life was of the worldly things. It was of it's embarrassing, I don't want to get up in front of all these people. I don't want to, it was, I'm not going to, I still don't know how I feel about, but that tugging was greater than my own physical world-ly thoughts. The tug was greater. Yeah, it was. So I waited for everybody to leave, and when the pastor, ex-biker, I'll never forget it, but him and his wife, whenever everybody left, I walked up to him and I said, would you talk with me? And I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this, because I don't never talk to anybody like that, But will you talk with me? And he's like, sure. So we went to his office. I started opening up. I started telling him about my past. I started telling him about things that I've been through. I'm not that person. I didn't know how to talk to people about my problems. I didn't know how to talk to people about what I'd been going through. It was, it just starts coming out. By the end of our conversation, oh my goodness. Something that he said to me, this was, part of the beginning, was he told me, after I told him my story, he says, you are going to be a warrior for Christ. Wow. God's telling me right now that you're going to be a warrior for Christ.
Wow.
So, and that's always been with me ever since.
How did it feel when you first heard that?
When I first heard it, I knew. I just knew.
And how did it make you feel? Just hearing that you're going to be a warrior for Christ.
It was confidence. It was it was like an instant strength. It was a purpose planted. It was
there's that word.
Yeah, and you know what? I say that it was a purpose planted, but I think it was more of the purpose that was in me was being shown in light. It was like the light was put on it and shown to me.
Like, I have a purpose.
Yeah, because I knew it was right.
You had confirmation within yourself.
It was confirmation within myself, and I knew it was right.
Okay.
I didn't understand it yet, but I knew the feeling.
It made sense.
Made sense, and there was no question about it.
That's amazing. And I'm just going to purpose. Like, even if you guys have listened to any of the other podcasts, that I believe that kind of a common element is we as people, we need to know we have a purpose and design. I think that's why a lot of times when the world hurts us and when broken things happen to us, sometimes we spiral because we forget or don't know what our purpose is. It's so important because you'll hear people in the military who come out and say, what's my purpose now?
Right.
And because of all they went through, it's hard to pull yourself out because you're like, for what reason? What reason do I need to pull myself out? And so you can do a bunch of things, but if it's not what you're built to do, it's not going to feel right. It's like putting on somebody else's clothes. And so it's just amazing that there's that common element that one of the parts of this podcast we talk about is we're all meant to be extraordinary. Every single one of us, if you were born, you're meant to be extraordinary. Now, whether we choose to do so is really up to us. We have free will. The enemy, negative forces, people who don't understand this don't want to show that this is true. But the truth is, every single person has a choice to walk the path that was designed for them. You can't walk someone else's, but you can walk your own. And so this is just an amazing example, and we'll continue on of your path and the choices that you made. And we stumble. That's the cool thing about this. It's not just about the success, but it's about the stumbling along the way and how everything can be turned into something beautiful.
Absolutely.
With the right attitude and support.
I'm going to jump in there with you because
you're
absolutely right. As far as that goes, the enemy or the world wants you to believe that you're just going to be going through the same thing that you've always gone through, and that there's never going to be a way out. But she's absolutely right to the point that we all certainly have a purpose, and our Father up there has something better for you than you currently have or think that you're always going to have.
That is so true.
I mean, and that's so empowering.
It is empowering.
And I'm telling you that because, not because, look, I'm telling you that because I've lived it. I'm living it. I feel it in me every single day. And I might jump ahead a little bit, but that's why, but that's why I do what I do today.
So let's talk about, what do you do today?
Yeah, so that's why I'm involved in the ministry, the Freedom Seeker ministry today. I actually went through the rehab shortly after my talk with the pastor and him praying over me and stuff that night. I went to rehab, and by God's grace and His plan, He worked it all out to where the pastor to the Freedom Seeker ministry, or the director, Ron Hutchins, came and spoke to us. And I didn't have the money, but God planned. He makes a way where it doesn't seem there's a way.
All you had to do was say yes.
All I had to do was say yes and humble myself and be willing to do something different. And even though it was very terrifying.
And the resources showed up?
The resources did show up within an hour. I said, I had to humble myself and say, I don't have it. Can someone, does anybody can somebody help me? I had to remove my pride out of the way. Within an hour, I had the money. And so then again, I start seeing these signs like, oh, Lord, that's how I love God, because He shows up in those ways. But He starts showing up saying, yeah, I'm not getting away for you. All you had to do was ask.
All you had to do is
I'm
ask.
knocking. I'm here constantly.
You have not because you ask not.
You have not because you ask not. And yeah. And he has a again, back to He has a purpose for all of us, and it's amazing, truthfully, the purposes for us. We just have to receive it, right?
That's
Humble
right.
ourselves, get out of the way, and let Him.
That's right.
So the ministry, I joined the ministry myself. I went through the program, again, Freedom Seekers, and the person that I was back then, this is 11 years ago, I didn't know who I was whatsoever. I was terrified. All I knew was it was different. The director, the pastor there, explained to me that it was about a relationship with Christ. That's what it's about, and
yeah, a lot of people think that it's about religion.
Yeah.
You were mentioning that. And you want to share what you thought it was like before.
Yeah, so,
explain that?
Right. So when I was a kid growing up, my grandparents, I'd say, that was taking us to church and stuff every Sunday. I believed then that, if you sinned, you were, sorry.
That's okay.
If you sinned, you were removed from God's glory, grace, you're going to hell. You know, that was it. You were removed from His grace. Even if you were saved, you were removed from His grace. And you know, somebody with some wisdom explained to me that it was just sin is just missing the mark, right?
That's right. That's all it is. It's an archery term, just missing the mark.
I like
and we
how you
all
put
miss
it.
the mark.
I do like how you put it that way, because I did learn that it was about a relationship, and that I don't think God expects us to be. He doesn't expect us to be perfect. You know,
Which is what grace is about.
Exactly. That's what grace is. That's why He gives us grace.
It's about receiving the gift and believing it to be true.
Right, and having faith that He's going to help, and that you know, there were so many situations in the beginning of my walk with Christ 11 years ago, going through rehab, that the most that I could do was just say, okay, I don't understand what's going on right now. I don't have to understand what's going on right now. I'm going to trust you, God. You know, and being a man, a lot of that was you deal with loneliness, right? You know, but I remember saying, God, look, you know what? My way does not work. I've tried multiple times to do it my way. I want to do it your way, even if that means I don't have a significant other in my life. Whatever the case may be, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to follow you 110%. I'm making you my Lord and Master and my guider. And it wasn't until then, you know, that everything starts, imagine this, everything starts coming together.
It always does. God shows up when we get to the end of ourselves.
When we get to the end of ourselves and we start getting ourselves out of the way, He he started showing up.
In a big way, too.
In
That's
a
amazing.
very big way. Remember how I said that I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression? That was a lie, straight from the pit of hell.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to be on medication for the rest of my life.
Well, that
That was a lie, straight from the pit of hell. You know, I haven't taken medication in 11 years plus.
Woo,
you know,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't had to, and I don't feel like I need to.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
It takes you out of that cycle, right? Because you're trying to get away from drugs. And I've heard this happen to so many people where they start doing better, but then they're told, you know, that because of medical reasons, they need to be on it. So it just brings them right back into that cycle.
Absolutely.
And so it's hard to get out,
Yep.
you know, because now you're taking something that is legal and something that's prescribed for you. And it brings you, if you're already struggling with drug addiction, then it's like escaping something that just won't get out.
It's right there. It's all up here,
It
folks.
is.
It's that mentality, you know.
It's an attack, and it's voices, and it's knowing the truth.
That's-
So what do you guys do in your ministry? Like
Okay.
what?
So we are a faith-based recovery program, and we have housing for men right now. We're located down in Berryville, Arkansas. It's the way. It's the only way. They say that that once you're a drug addict or an alcoholic, that you will always be a drug addict and alcoholic, and that for me also, I was proven to be a lie. It was shown to me that was a lie, because I know that I serve a God to where I don't have to introduce myself as, hi, my name is Joe, I'm a drug addict.
Amen.
No, he breaks all of that off of you.
Hi, my
He
name is
renews
Kanisha. I'm a
us.
child of God.
Yeah, right. He's that. But this is the kind of thing that we do. You know, this is the kind of thing that we talk about in our ministry, and to grow. You know, it's me personally. It's God, my purpose. I know what my purpose is, without a shadow of a doubt. He's called me to counsel. He's called me to encourage, and why?
And speak truth.
And speak
And
truth.
call out those
and
lies.
Call out the lies. I'll put a spotlight on it, especially if it comes to somebody that I know that's struggling or hurting, or they feel like they're different from everybody else, and then you have the judgment there and all that comes
Which
with it.
is not from God.
Judgment's not from God. No, that's just another trick of the enemy.
It is. It is definitely.
So that's what we do. We house. We ask for a 90-day commitment. We'll help you get a job. We'll help you save money. And obviously, we want you to have a relationship with Christ. We want you to have, because that's where the breakthrough comes. We'll go into water. We will break it down. We will explain to you and show you, not just explain. Because for me personally, it's not about just talking the talk. It's about walking it. It's become that in my life. He personally took me from a place to where, I was a wreck. I was a mess. And now, because of what he's done in my life, it's my calling to share that with other people.
That's so beautiful. So have you ever had someone come in who it was kind of their first introduction to Jesus, kind of
Absolutely.
in this? And so how do you walk them through that with them being so new?
Mm-hmm. So, well, really, it's pretty simple. Honestly, I can share where I was before. It's called our testimony. We all have one. I can share where I was before Christ, and I can tell you where I'm at after Christ. And then I can share my experiences in the process. That's another beautiful thing about walking with Christ is you can continually grow. You don't just get to a point and stop and plateau and then it's like, yay, he takes us to new levels. He's always taking us to new levels. And so he fires me up. The Holy Spirit gets me motivated. Anyway, but that's what we do is through experiences and through our own personal, a lot of that. And obviously we point them to the cross.
That's beautiful. So how do you address the people who come in with some really bad misconceptions about what it means to follow Christ, like thinking they have to be perfect or thinking they'll never measure up?
Yeah, so the first thing I like to do is explain to them that that's a lie. Okay, because
it's a powerful thing to say.
Yeah,
that's great.
That's a lie. That is a lie. And that's a lie that I used to believe. Also, there's a lot of people that come in that were hurt by the church that I've worked with, and I say, listen, I would say to that person that I think as people we have to understand that we are still not perfect, even as Christians, right?
That's right.
Even as Christians, none of us are perfect.
That's right.
So when somebody hurts you, it wasn't Christ, it wasn't God that hurt you. It was just you're dealing with another person
and their choices.
And everybody's still trying to do this walk on their. We're all doing this walk. We all got our own walks that we're trying to do. Don't let something that somebody did keep you from going where you need to go.
That's right, because that's a choice you have.
Well, everybody's got their choices, right? We still have a choice.
You can choose to forgive and move forward. You can choose to hold on to it.
Yeah.
You can choose to be stuck. You can choose to keep going.
And that's another thing that I would like to talk about is that whole mindset that it's so easy for us to, like in our brains, I read this thing about how when something bad happens, your brain will instantly go to the same reaction that you've always had, right? Goes back to the same reaction that you've always had because we've created channels in our mind.
That's right.
We've created these channels, and so when it's just like a chain reaction, but Christ says He'll renew your mind.
Fill those in.
He gives you the ability, and He can give you the ability if you're willing to receive it to see it for what it is, and to be able to stop it at that point. And the more that happens, it starts to change your thought pattern, and you start to heal. And wait a minute, things aren't always going to be this way.
That's
they don't have to always
and you
be
create
this way.
new channels that are healthier.
Yeah, and
that's good. That's actually neuroplasticity right there. You're talking about.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep, and that's science, the scientific side of it. But the spiritual side of it, that's where the power's at.
That's
I'm a absolute firm believer in the spirit. I mean, you've heard my own testimonies, and not even all of it, but from my experiences into this realm that we can't see, He's given me the gift to see it at times when I need it.
Right, and to let people know about that it's real.
Absolutely.
That it is a real thing. When you see stuff, then that you're seeing something that's real, because the world would have you say you're seeing things. Yeah. And that is not the truth either.
Yeah, the world. I love how the world tries to explain stuff away, and how it tries to. We have to figure everything out, or we have to understand everything that's happening, and that's not true either.
No, it's not. It's a lie.
It is a lie.
It's built on deception.
I can't tell you how many times in my 11 years walking with Christ where I've come up against the wall. Okay? Because we still do. It's not all cherries and blueberries.
Well, you still have a real enemy that's still trying to do his job.
Yeah. Where you come up against this wall and you're looking at it and you're just like, man, how am I going to get it? But I can't tell you how many times that's happened in my life where I've come up against this wall, or a misunderstanding, or confused, and I'm not quite sure and I can look back later on because I chose to trust God. I chose to have faith in and not have to understand everything, but later on down the road I can look back and be like, wow, that's why that had to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm glad that I humbled myself and I just trusted him, and he took me through a place and because he's always molding us.
Yes, and it's about the attitude and what we choose to do. I mean, the world is broken, and we're full of people who all have free will and choice to make choices, whether they're healthy or unhealthy choices, whether they affect someone else or help somebody else or hurt someone else.
Absolutely.
It's all a bunch of choices, and within that, something happens to a person, and you can't really choose what someone does to you, but you can choose what you choose to do after that. Do you perpetuate unhealthy behavior, or do you look towards the light, towards something that's healthy? And it's not easy.
No.
But we don't have to do it alone. And God is with us, but we are also not alone here on this earth. There are people who are walking their paths and who have overcome different things in their lives, who've sat where you're sitting. This is like, Joe, you're someone who is sitting and who have sat where people who have sitting there, people who you've been talking to, who have been where you are now and where you're headed in kind of your own way. It's amazing. We are not by ourselves even here. We are in community here with
I love
people.
that. That's another lie from the enemy. Is like, you're alone. No.
Never. We are not alone. And the cool thing is I've seen God send, like we've been sent, like I've been sent across like the world to another part of the country, another country, to somebody I didn't know, and just said something. And she's like, wow, I feel like you were an angel sent by God because this is how I was feeling. Like,
that's how he works.
God will send people. It's so amazing. And just, for those of you listening or watching right now, I will say if any of this is tugging at you, if you are feeling that here, if anything, then take that moment to reach out either to someone that comes to your mind, because God will bring somebody to mind. Reach out. If hearing about, you said Freedom Seekers, Berryville,
it's Arkansas. In Berryville, Arkansas. You can look it up on Facebook. If
hearing that in any way lights for you, whether it is you want to get into prison ministry or rehabilitation ministry, or you know somebody, or you yourself want to experience it, if it in any way is reaching to you, please reach out and ask for you. Please reach out through Facebook or through, and I've checked, they do have a website.
They do have a website, freedomseekers.org. And then, of course, on Facebook, it is Freedom Seekers, and the FSM in blue with gold trim. That's the logo that you'll be looking for, and you can reach out to us through that.
So please do so. God has a way of just tugging at us, and for reasons we might not even understand. You might be thinking, why am I tugged to this? I never thought I wanted to do this. Follow that. I call them breadcrumbs. Follow them, because you never really know where it's going to lead. And the other thing I'd love to touch on is when you were saying, and it's true, whenever you're going to do something new, it's going to hurt. It doesn't feel good. No. It doesn't, but it will feel good. And the best example I can give of this is for those of you who have ever worked out, or those of you who have tried a new skill, something that you're interested in, and you've done it for the first time. It always feels awkward. It always feels uncomfortable. Yes. There's always sometimes a little bit of pain, because learning, even building muscle, you have to tear down what's there, and then it builds. And it's actually kind of neat. I was thinking about this when you were talking. Is when we work out, or when you do anything, I mean, there's an expectation of knowing that actually just in like the next day, you're going to feel stronger. Mm-hmm. You're going to actually build muscle. It's actually kind of cool. Or when you do a new activity, at first it feels weird, but the next time you do it, it actually starts feeling a little bit easier, and that feels great. And so what if we dealt with our growth spiritually even in that some way, expecting that whatever work we're going to do is going to have a return, and it's going to be easier the next time. So just to push past that bit of pain, reach out to somebody who's done it before to encourage you, so that you can lock arms, because we're not meant to do it by ourselves. Ask God for help. I think that's the thing people don't realize is, just as you would ask your parent for whatever you would need so that you would be able to, you can actually ask God, like, I don't understand this. Will you explain that? Will you tell me which way is this? I mean, we'll ask Google and GPS and ways to tell us where to go. We can do the same thing.
I think it's just really easy. Yeah, it's so easy for us to Google our answers.
You might as well. You could take a pill. You're talking about people don't understand how it exists there and there. Well, we can take a pill. We don't know what's in it. We don't know how it works. I mean, we don't know what it's going to do physiologically, but we will trust that if I take this pill, my headache's going to go away. Right? We trust that it does, and we're willing to wait for it. So, I mean, we obviously have it in us. So, some of you who this will speak to, and that'll be great. Some of it might not make sense, but I just say, let it marinate. And I think sometimes, you were talking about kindling earlier, sometimes he just puts the kindling down until it's time to light it up.
He'll definitely plant those seeds in you.
Yes, he will.
Again, overcome the fear. I think it is one of the enemy's biggest weapons. It's
Fear.
to keep us in a place of fear to where we do not grow to the place that we need to. Because again, back to what I was saying, my first steps was I was terrified. And even today, like whenever I'm asked to go and speak to people, or in front of last September, I had the opportunity to go speak to a group of men and women in Teen Challenge in Delaware, and at first I was all gung ho about it, but then after thinking about it for a couple months, then I started getting nervous, you know what I mean, and I started overthinking things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? I don't know, you know what I mean? Those thoughts, what are you listening
keep
to,
you
right?
from going.
Yeah, try to keep
effective.
me from being effective.
Mm-hmm.
But what it boiled down to was, it boiled down to a simple faith.
Mm-hmm.
It boiled down to my simple trust that I have learned to depend on.
Mm-hmm.
Because he showed up true.
He always does.
Every
He
single
always does. You just got to get out of the way.
Yeah, I got to get out of the way. And that day, when the day came, and I was going to go to do it, I remember I got up that morning, and yes, my flesh was still like, but I still got in the car, the rental, and I was driving there, and the Holy Spirit overcame me on that drive to that meeting. He started to share with me the feelings of everybody that I was going to speak to again.
Yes.
And it broke my heart. I was crying. I'm like, I'm going to this meeting, I'm already crying, and now I'm going to go in there and look like I've been crying all morning. But he reminded me again where I was at, the pain that people go through every single day, and it was like he was reminding me, this is why I'm sending you.
You have a purpose.
You do not have to have all the answers. Get out there and talk.
Just show
Get
up.
out there and share. Just show up. I will give you the words to say.
Amen.
How many times have I done that?
Yeah.
How many times have I gotten in a situation where I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm going to say, but then I get there, and next thing I know, things are coming out of my mouth. I'm like, well, I've never even read that anywhere.
Yeah, I know
He's
exactly what you
using
mean.
me.
You just got to show up and get out of the way.
So yes,
That's
hope
it.
for all. I love it. Yeah, the community thing though.
Yeah.
This time that we're in right now with the coronavirus and everything that's going on, I said it to my own wife, oh, by the way, I got to give a plug to her. She's amazing, Grace, okay? I have to give a plug to her because God brought her into my life. She went through some things as well. She went through the program as well for a while, but He's made us both equally yoked, and we both strive to reach people. We've been married for 9 years now.
Wow.
She is a gift from God, and my daughter that I she's been in my life now since she was 6 years old. Another gift from God, but I'm just saying, like, He blesses those. He blesses His children. We just have to be, we just have to be humble and obedient in His calling for us, and have faith in Him. Trust that He's going to work things out in our life.
That's right. And ask Him if you're struggling with things. You can ask Him, and He will answer you. It might be no, but you can ask Him.
Absolutely.
Not yet.
And if He says no, it's okay.
There's a reason.
We live in a society now, right, where everything is instant. We can get instant gratification. It's okay to be still.
No can sometimes be the best answer ever. It really can be. And sometimes, a no makes room for a yes later.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes that yes is way better than the yes you was going to get to in the first place.
So it's definitely a good thing to say. And I mean, thank you so much for just opening up your life like this and sharing it. I just know, there's so much prayer over all of this that God's going to send the people who are supposed to hear this, to see you, to listen to this, that are going to be encouraged, empowered, and to move them to wherever they need to go. I have continually seen it, like ever since this podcast. Like, I'll even go and say, I don't know what I was going to talk about. I just showed up. There's actually a time where one of my podcasts showed up on my phone out of nowhere, and I was like, why is this showed up? And I was like, well, maybe I'm supposed to listen to myself. So I did. And I helped myself. I was like, wow, that is so profound. That was not me. That was God.
That's something. Can I throw another little quick?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Learn to write your thoughts down in a journal. Put your thoughts down because, again, I feel like that, you can later on in life you can go back and look at those things and see where you used to be and be reminded of how far you've come.
Oh,
Sometimes
that is such a good idea.
Yeah, it's so easy to become complacent or to be
so
comfortable in our
true.
walk and be like, well, here we go.
Yeah,
And
or to get ungrateful, or to,
ungrateful,
or to forget how far you've come or how much, because the enemy's always attacking. I think that's the thing people don't realize.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who don't understand when I say enemy, we're talking about Satan, but just the negativity in the world is there. So if you don't know even that, anybody knows just the negativity that happens, the bad voices that you hear, all of that stuff, that is the enemy. Mm-hmm. And even though when you've received healing, sometimes we think, okay, we're healed, we're done. Yeah. Guess what? The enemy's not done.
Right.
You know, he doesn't stop, you know. And so, I mean, I guess a good example could be, you know, let's say if you think about the elements that come against, let's say, a home, right? You know, a bad storm or something like that. And a bad storm could come and just devastate a house, right? And you can go up and say, okay, I'm going to fix this house. And it's going to be great, and now it's going to be standing up. But you know what? I'm not going to weather strip it because we're good.
Yeah.
You know, we're fine.
We're not going to finish it.
Yeah, we're going to be okay. But guess what? The weather's going to still keep coming. So if you don't do that part, it's going to damage the house again. Mm-hmm. We have to keep doing our part to keep the house doing well, to keep it healthy. But even more than that, and I think this is another tool that I've learned the hard way as well, is we have to strive towards being on our purpose and also reaching out, like getting outside of ourselves into the community.
Yes.
Because we tend to get stuck in fixing up
Absolutely.
our own houses.
Yes.
That we kind of have not empowered ourselves to empower others. That's really when it gets awesome.
That's where the breakthrough comes. You will get to the point to where you, especially with walking with Christ and having that relationship with Him, that you will be so ecstatic about where you've come that you need to share it with somebody.
You have to. And I think that was my thing, is I got to a point, because it was, I think, a bit of fear. And for me, it was trying to figure out with family and trying to keep the enemy out.
Sure.
You know, and God has a way of getting to you and says, this is not how this works.
No.
You can't just be internal.
No.
You can't just be, right now with the climate, people are now being told, go into your homes and stay away from other people right now, because that is what you need to do. Yes. Thing is that is against how we were built.
Yep. And
so we really must, so for those of you who are watching this while this is still going on, pray about it. Figure out ways that you can be in community.
Yes,
because we are meant to be in community.
God said we have Him and we have each other. That's why we have fellowship. Here I am tonight, right?
I know.
Here
And God said we were supposed to have fellowship tonight. This is so important. And although technology is great, we are meant to be in
contact
and around each other. There is an exchange that happens with our bodies when we're all together. It's just supposed to be that way. And the Spirit moves when two are gathered together. And so even if you're at home with your family, find time for fellowship. If you feel pulled to go out and hug a stranger, I'm sorry, I'm going to just say hug the stranger. because I mean, there is healing. There is healing, and pray for them. I honestly believe there has been healing and all the hugs. Actually, I know it has been.
Yeah.
I know it has been.
Amen.
So I believe in that.
And I'm going to back her up again, because yes, we have each other. He puts people in our lives for a reason. It's so easy for us to get introvert. So easy for us to feel like we're the only one.
And we're supposed to lay hands on each other.
Yeah, there we go.
Lay hands.
We lay hands.
Lay hands.
And also what you were pointing on, something that I always encourage, is surround yourself with people going in the same direction as you, that are positive. Don't be afraid to turn off Facebook if you have to. Cut out those people in your lives that are poison for you or not encouraging you. Cut them people. Delete some phone numbers
if you need to.
Amen.
Amen. Yes, if you need to.
Yeah,
it's true. No, he's right about that. And you've actually mentioned this earlier. Either it's building up or it's tearing down. I think it's very. You can take anything in your life and ask that question: is what I'm doing? Is what this person doing? Is what I'm saying? Is what they're saying? Is what I'm watching? Is what I'm. Anything you can say: is it building up? Or is it tearing down?
The speaking of what comes out of here right here, there's so much power, and it's that's right. Are we encouraging or are we tearing down? We got to be careful, absolutely careful what we say. There's so much damage or so much restoring that can come just from our
what
voice.
We say. And I'm gonna say this one thing. Actually, it's about testimony that we have. Is I remember, if you don't mind me sharing this, when we met you over at where you work, and we were talking, and Brandon had mentioned that he noticed that you were someone who was an encourager. You know, that you'd like to kind of lay hands on the shoulder to bring that encouragement.
Hey,
and he said he had noticed that you were going to do that. You had held back.
Yes. I did.
And he had asked about that, and you had mentioned that you had been in experience because of everything that's going on, that you had done that, and after that person kind of kept doing that. And as I was just watching you say that, I could feel it, because it's only how God will just put in our hearts for each other. That just the pain and the hurt of that, and that's the enemy, that spirit of rejection, that spirit, and I just, you retracted in. And that is not building up, isn't it? It brought you in to be like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. And although worldly, I get it. Logically, I get it.
That's
but I saw the pain, and like, that's a part of who you are. You're an encourager. And that's how God chooses to bring some of that encouragement. There's power through laying of hands.
The connection.
It is. And so we were sent there
I agree.
to say that to you.
All this is laid out before us anyway.
So that you can and I saw you just brighten up.
It's
After you
amazing
heard
when God does send those people into your life, and
you didn't have to ask. You just kind of went into, because it's easy by ourselves. That's what we do. Well, we don't want to offend anyone, and we want to make sure we do things right, which is beautiful. And God sends people over. We weren't even supposed to be there that day, honestly. We were supposed to be somewhere else. And happened to notice that, happened to say that, and then we got to encourage you, the encourager.
Amazing, yes, and I love how he does that, because he does send the people there whenever you
at the right time,
and just to point it out, just to simply point.
Like, you're okay, you are doing good. We need people encouraging. We need the light. We need the lights in the world to be the lights in the world and the salt. So
I like that too, to be the light in the world. A lot of people say the lighthouse. I like to use the analogy of a artillery shell, a firecracker, where each and every one of us are completely different. He molds us into this shell, and then we each have a fuse. So God's made us. He's created us a new object. We each have a fuse. The Holy Spirit comes into the picture. He's the fire in our life. He's the one that really starts to burn in us.
That's that reaction.
And start the reaction and changes and whatnot. That's God living in us, working through us. He's fires the one that lights the fuse. And then whenever the fuse gets to where it needs to, he sends us. He takes us higher than we ever thought we could be into the sky, and lifts us up to new levels, lifts us up to a new place. And then through that, when we're up there, and we explode because of the glory of God, and our light shines. We're all different colors, different sizes. But it's all for a purpose, and we're all just displaying God's glory in the skies. So, anyway.
That's so beautiful. Well, gosh, that's a great note to leave on. Well, I'm so glad you guys joined us here again on The Extraordinary Zone. Thanks for your patience. I know it has been a while, but God's timing is perfect. And I thank you. Thank you so much for we just set this up today. Like, we just got here yesterday, and I'm like, hey, can you do this? He's like, yeah, let's do this. I love that. I love it, because miracles happen in that space whenever we're not attached to how things go.
And may God get all the glory for all this.
Amen. So thank you. We love you. We are so glad you're here. Please reach out. You know where to find us. Have a beautiful day. And reminder, and Joe, this goes for you too. All of you, anybody who's listening to this, you are extraordinary and created for a beautiful purpose.